Hey guys, it's Monica at Academic Phoenix Plus, and welcome to a lighting tutorial. This has been a request, actually several times, by multiple subscribers asking to do an interior lighting scene setup using Arnold in Maya. All right, so this is our scene so far. I just threw in together some assets that I've built in the past. So for example, this is the Posh tutorial where you can build the chairs, the vase, the table, so on and so forth. I also, during Inktober, I modeled this fireplace with these assets, the mirror. I just threw this in really quick. And I also added some wood panels. Now, it doesn't have a ceiling, clearly, but that was just to demonstrate to you guys what it looks like right now with a physical sky. So just in case you guys don't know, under Arnold Lights, there's something called physical sky, which will wrap your scene in this dome that has a gradient of gray to blue. And it mimics sunlight. And it looks great if there was no roof, so it's perfect for exterior lighting. But when we talk about interior lighting, we suddenly get a different type of look. So let's go ahead and render what this looks like with just a physical sky from outside. A little bit more about the scene. I did create a camera. So I created a create camera, and I called it my render cam. So if I go to panels perspective, render cam, you're going to see that this is the camera that I want to render in. So this one doesn't have the roof, and now I am going to render the scene. Now this does take about 35 seconds. So in this video's tutorials, I am going to go ahead and hit pause on the recording so you guys don't have to wait. But what you guys can do is that I'm going to press play. It's going to re-render the scene. So for you guys, it will be microseconds. And for me, it's going to be a couple of seconds. So I will be right back. All right. Tell the difference that having a ceiling and a wall is not the best for lighting. So we definitely need to fill this environment in with more light. So that's what this video tutorial is going to show you. So let's start off with the outside. When we look outside, we rarely have a gradient color. So what we want to do is add maybe a plane. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate this -90 degrees. And what I'm going to do is just take it out here and kind of expand it so that when you render it, this is what you're going to see. I'm going to go over here to look to views. And I'm going to go to panels render cam on one side. It's a little hard to see, but I'm going to go ahead and squeeze them together just so I can see a little bit more. And you can see that there's like a gap. So I'm going to take this and just kind of scoot it to the back. So again, my goal is to make sure that this panel fits the background of our scene. I already found an image that I want to put in the background. So I'm going to go to right click, assign a new material. And I'm actually going to use an old shader that has been around in Maya since probably the beginning of time. And it's called the surface shader. It's not an Arnold shader. It's actually a Maya shader. So the surface shader, what's great about it is that it doesn't have any shadow or highlight information. So it doesn't render based on the lighting. So this is very important because we wanted the background to be flat. As we manipulate the lighting, we don't want the background to be affected. So over here to the right, we have out color. I'm going to click on this little checker. Go to File, go to that little folder, and what I have is a tree background, but I actually blurred it in Photoshop so that it looks like something, looks like it's in the background and is not very distracting. I'm going to go ahead and rotate this as well, 180 degrees, and let's see what that looks like. All right, it is done. Let me take a snapshot of that, and you can see what a big difference it makes when you see one from the other. We get some nice reflections on the glass surface here and along all the things. So it really adds realism to our scene. Okay, so I'm not going to need the sky dome anymore. So go ahead and grab that sky dome and delete it. And let's see what this render looks like without a sky dome. So you can see that it's very dark. It is picking up some really nice reflections, which I like, but boy, is it dark. So we definitely want to make sure that we add some lighting. So let's build our own lighting. I'm going to start off with a sunlight. Usually what I do is I'm going to go to create light and I'm going to use what's called a directional light. Now the directional light, which you can't see, I'm going to go to show lights. There it is. I'm going to scale it. Now don't worry about scaling it because it won't affect the actual lighting. So what the directional light does is that it in fact emits a light on one direction for infinity. And this is great because it will give us parallel shadows. So using a directional light is perfect for the sun. Now it's a little hard to see, so I'm going to turn on this light source, which is number 7, and then you can click on this, and this will give you a shadow, and this is a preview. And the preview will help you place the lighting as to where do you want it to go. And I highly recommend that you guys think about where do you want your lighting to be and also what time of day. Do you want the focus to be perhaps on the painting? Then this would be a great opportunity to put your light like this, something that really accentuates the painting. Or perhaps you're actually focusing on the chairs, right? So this is where storytelling comes in. You want to be able to tell a story on what's going on with lighting. What do you want them to focus? Maybe there's something interesting in the fireplace, things like that. So I'm actually going to focus a little bit more on the chairs as well as the painting. Just a little bit. Now remember, it also depends what time of day it is. The lower the sun, the longer the shadows. So if you're trying to create like a sunset, then you would have long shadows. If you're trying to say that it's around noon and it's nice and bright, then I'd probably would suggest that you make your shadows short. So, take a look at reference when you guys are lighting. So I'm going to go ahead and do something like this. And let's see what that looks like. So I didn't let it finish because I'll just go ahead and show you. This is what it looks like right now. And I kind of like what it's doing right here as well as over here. Of course, it's still very dark, but again, I'm just placing my light source. This is going to be my key light source. This is my sunlight. So let's talk a little bit about the directional light. So now that I have this type of lighting, and maybe I'll just go more like this so the floor has a little bit more of a pull, we can talk about intensity and color. Color is exactly what it sounds like. I can change this to like a teal and it will change the color to a teal. Now, I want this to be sunlight, so I am going to choose a little bit of something warm. Now, you really want to try to avoid choosing just pure white, because the reality is that there isn't really pure white light out there. Usually there's some sort of color, and you also want to play with color. I mean, that's the point of being like a lighting artist, is that you want to be able to tell a story through light. So change the color using color. We can also increase the intensity of our light. So for example, if I increase my intensity to 2, you can see that the preview has already changed and it's a little bit brighter. But let's see what that looks like in a render. All right, so you can compare the difference and I moved the light a little bit. You can tell the difference between one and the other. One's a little bit brighter and it's a little warmer, which is exactly what I want. I want it to emit yellow light. All right, let's talk about shadows. Let's open up the directional light and let's go to Arnold. Let's open this up. Exposure is going to come in handy. What's going to happen is that exposure will exponentially increase whatever you have in your intensity.
If you guys go to the Autodesk Arnold documents, it will break down the light system for you. So if you want to know more information about what exactly is color temperature, you can find out here. And I also have a video about it as well to break it down. So if you guys are interested, I'll leave a link below. And what we really want to talk about is the exposure. So the exposure basically means that it takes the color times the intensity and then exponentially increases it by 2. So for example, if you have an intensity of 1 and an exposure of 4, then it's going to say that the color is 1, as white, the intensity is 1, it exponentially increases it by 4, so the number is 16. Now the funny thing is that you can do the exact same thing with intensity. So for example, if the color is white and you change it to 16 and leave the exposure to 0, then it's 16. So they work together. You can get the same results with just intensity, but the reality is that you can use less values and bigger effects if you just use the exposure. So I have a tendency to use the exposure a lot. If you want more information about the light, please take a look at Arnold's documents. They are awesome. All right, so that is lighting temperature and exposure. Let's talk about an angle. So as I zoom in, just like you do on a regular object, you're going to notice that the shadows of this directional light are really sharp. The reality is that that's not accurate to realism. You really need some sort of softness in the shadows, and that's where angle comes in. So for example, if I go ahead and change my angle to 2, and I'm going to make a selection here, just so that it renders only that portion, you'll notice that the shadow is now a lot softer. This is very important. So the longer the shadow, the softer the shadow. So the higher your angle. The shorter the shadow, so for example, if it's noon, the sharper it's going to be, so you want a smaller angle. I'm going to leave mine at 2, and let's see what that looks like. Hit 1, to see the whole thing, and let's take a look. All right, you can see that it is looking really nice. The shadows are not as sharp. And what's really great is that notice how sharp the shadow is up here, and as it gets further away from the light source, the shadows get softer. And that's actually really nice. Now, the issue is the noise. The whole scene has a lot of noise, but the shadow itself has a lot of noise. So let's talk about samples. So samples in the directional light means that it will spend more time making sure that there's less noise in the render. So let's go ahead and increase that by 3. I probably wouldn't go any higher than 3 or 4. And then let's see what that looks like. Now my render right now is 46 seconds. This will maybe increase my render time a little bit, but let's see what it looks like. All right, that took 51 seconds. So just by increasing the samples, it will increase your render time. And this is just one light. But what's important to note is that the quality of the shadow is significantly nicer. There is still noise caused by the indirect lighting, but as you can see, the shadow itself is a lot softer and it looks really nice. Awesome. Now with that, we have a understanding of what the directional light does. Let's move on to start lighting the rest of the room. It's looking pretty dark. Let's go ahead and brighten up the rest of the room.
And let's talk about fill light. The sun is not the only thing that emits light. There's a lot of indirect lighting coming from the sky and also from the trees and everything. So there's just a lot of light bouncing around. So we need to mimic that. Go to Arnold Light and we're going to use the area light, my favorite light. And I'm going to make it a little bit bigger and bring it into the scene. And you'll notice that this little light has this little line sticking out of it. That's perpendicularly sticking out of it. That is the direction of the light. So to satisfy the needs of this environment, or this light, I'm going to go ahead and make it the size of the window. This is supposed to be my window light. This is supposed to mimic the sky. So let's just take a look, make sure it's not too big because there's no reason to light the back of it. And before I forget, this is a piece of geometry which could potentially block your light. So what I'm going to do is go into Arnold and I'm looking at the plane shape. You want to turn off cast shadows, self shadow. So you don't want it to cast any shadows if light hits it. You do want to see reflections. You do want to see refractions. You do want to see transmission and all that stuff, but you definitely don't want to have it actually cast a shadow. Bring it inside the environment. And again, I'm going to make it just a little bit smaller. And the first thing I do is turn off normalize. Normalize means that it doesn't consider the scale. When you increase the scale, the intensity remains at 1, so it spreads the diffuse or the intensity out through this whole area. However, if you turn it off, it makes the whole thing intensity of 1. I have a whole tutorials on lighting, like specifically each single light, and I'll link it below. But in general, I wanted to turn that off. And let's see what that's going to look like. So right off the bat, we're getting some really nice lighting. My shadows are working. This is what it was before. I'm really getting the nice fill light, and I'm really happy with that. Now, of course, I can make it better. I personally like to use color to enhance my scenes. So for example, you guys already know about color, intensity, exposure. I'm going to turn the temperature on and just kind of make it a little bit warmer. And by warmer, I'm trying to make it more like a skylight. This will help make the environment feel a little bit like the sky is coming in and adding some blue shade to it. So let's see what that looks like. All right, that's a little too blue. Let me decrease that. Actually, let me turn off use temperature, and I'm just going to eyeball it. I don't even know why I use blue. I only use temperature when I'm trying to light like candles, so I'm really not sure why I'm trying. Anyway, I just wanted to demonstrate it to you. Let's see. Let's add a little bit of blue. Not too much blue, just a hint. So you'll notice that the change is very subtle. It does make it a little bit cooler, but the effect is nice because now I have warm lighting and blue light coming in. So it's a nice touch. So it depends what you're trying to go for. I'm going to go ahead and take a snapshot of this and move forward. You'll notice that in the render on the right side, it's really dark. And we want to also have lighting coming from another light source, which is the bounce light. So let's add another area light. Arnold Lights area light. Usually what I do is that I like to make sure that the light itself, the bounce light, actually emits bounce light. So the way I handle those type of bounce lights is that I make a light and I place it where, the sunlight hits. So that means that it hits around the floor and it also hits around the ceiling. This is going to help increase the intensity of the light. So I'm going to go ahead and make this light source relatively large. It's not going to be very intense. Actually, let me go in here and change my dimensions here. So let's make sure everything's nice and straight. Something around here. Again, don't forget to go to normalize. And I do want this light to be a little bit warm. If you want to, you can color pick this color. So, that's kind of fun. So you can just grab this nice color. Usually it gets a little dark, so I like to lighten it a little bit more so that it becomes brighter. The darker the color, the less light it emits. And I'm going to duplicate this light, Control D. And I believe this one's negative 90 degrees. This is going to be my tiny pool of light over here. It's not going to be too intense. Just want to make sure that this also emits light. Now, since I duplicated, Control D, it's going to have the same color. It's going to turn off normalize. And I might make it just a little bit smaller and scoot it to the left. Something like that. Let's see what that looks like. All right, so you can see that this environment's getting brighter. This is what we had before. This is what we have now. Now, there's a couple of things I do want to tackle next, which is we're getting a lot of refraction, and it's being picked up by reflections, and because we have Chrome, it causes issues. So the only thing I want this to do is to give it light to the diffuse. I don't want it to be caught in in highlights, for example. My key light is my window. That's the only thing that should be reflecting, and it's the only thing that should be in the reflections. So I'm going to scroll down to visibility, and what I'm going to do is turn off my specular. You see how it says specular and I slid it to 0? I'm going to do that to this one as well. And I'm going to do it to this one as well. And the reason why is because all of this is considered bounce light. My main light is my key light. This was emitting at the beginning really nice reflections, right? Like around here. So I want to make sure I keep that. So let's see what that looks like. The change is very subtle, but you'll notice that it is no longer blowing out the glass. It's no longer being picked up by a lot of things. In general, the reflection is all being caught by the pool of light. Now, if you do like some of the specularity, so for example, I did kind of like that specularity here, you can bring it back. It is your choice. This is an artist's choice. So that means that if you feel like maybe you do want a little bit of that specularity, then you are more than welcome to bring that up. Now, the bottom of the chair is blowing out. So the way you can tackle that is by either making the light smaller and maybe even duplicating it so it doesn't affect it. Or what you can also do is called a light blocker. So a light blocker is considered a filter. So down here at the bottom of this area light, I'm going to add a filter, and I'm going to add what's called the light blocker. The light blocker creates this tiny little transform. And by the way, you can find it here under transform. And what I want to do is use this to block the light. So for example, I'm just going to make it a little bit larger. I'm scaling it, I'm making it bigger. And I really just want to block the bottom of the chair. And to be fair, I only want a little bit of it. So let me just go in and just do a little bit of changes here just to make sure the blocker fits well underneath the chair. Something like this, maybe a little bit thinner, because again, it's just the bottom of the chair. That actually looks pretty good. Cool. And I'm going to increase the density. And I'm also going to increase the height and the ratio. Now, again, I have a video tutorial on what all of this does, but what happens is that it will darken this area here. So if you find it to be, there's something that you find that the light's blowing out, you can use a light blocker. So let's see what that looks like. So let's compare and contrast. You can see how bright it is. Let's turn that off. You can see that it's making an impact. If you want a stronger impact, we can always select it and increase the density and also, well, just increase the density. All right, it definitely looks better. Much more natural. All right, so now that we have basically the window and all the bounce lights around it, let's go ahead and talk about this dark area, the other side. So this is where you can add another area light. Again, I mentioned that these are my favorite lights. They seriously are my favorite lights. Let's go in and give this area an area light. I'm going to make sure that it's rotating over here. And this is basically going to be my interior lighting. So we're assuming that there's going to be some sort of light source. Perhaps there's another window over here. You just kind of have to be a little bit creative, but just make your light, reasonably big. Go ahead and turn off normalize. And then if you like, I would recommend that you give it a color. Again, you can choose a little bit of, it depends what you're trying to achieve. You can choose a little bit of warm. You might want to go a little bit more in the orangey side. Depends what type of lighting you want on your scene. Let's see what that looks like. All right, this is what it was before, and you can see what a big difference that light does. So I would call this IKEA catalog lighting. That's what I would call this. And the reason why is because everything's very even. You can see everything clearly. There isn't that much mood to it. The purpose of the lighting is to be able to see all of the hard work and furniture that you created. So if you wanted to give it a little bit more mood, you might want to consider changing the color. So for example, maybe you might want to go for a little bit more red and make it a little bit more pink. So there's like a little bit of a gradient. Now Pixar, Blue Sky, DreamWorks, it's all about gradients with them. So keep that in mind as if you want to be like a lighting artist, that you really want to make sure that you add colors like almost like saturated colors. And I am going to decrease the intensity just a little bit so that it doesn't really distract from my hot spot over here. I really want to make sure that everything kind of bounces and works together. And I also have fur, by the way, so my carpet is not this weird little flat thing, and the render time will take longer. But let's see what it looks like with a little bit more color, a little bit more mood. All right, let's take a look. Here we are. This is what we had before. I did not snapshot the other one. Oh well, so you can see that it's a little redder on the one side, a little bit more yellow in the other. If it's a little too strong, you guys can always change it, but I'm kind of digging it. So that is how you do an interior lighting. So let's take a look at what we have so far. This is what it looked like without the ceiling. And then we decided to go ahead and start giving it a background, adding our own light source. We started playing with directional lights, playing with the shadows, started adding the fill lights, and then finally we have this really completed scene. Great, but we still have a lot of noise. You can see that there's noise over here, which I call fireflies, which the industry actually calls fireflies. And it's also officially is noise. There's noise in the shadows here, and there's a lot of noise everywhere. So we really want to make sure that we create a really nice quality render. And to do that, we need to go to our render settings. Let's go to our render settings. I'm going to change my image size to 720. I do want to make sure that I render from the render cam. I'm going to go to Arnold and crank up these values. Now I have a video tutorial explaining what this is all about. But if you want high quality renders, you want to make sure that you increase these values. I don't think I have subsurface, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. Turn on adaptive sampling, and you might want to increase that up a little bit higher. If you do have glass, which I don't have glass in my windows, I have a little bit of glass here. You might want to open up ray depth and just kind of increase these a little bit more just to make sure that things are looking good. And I will be right back. All right, and here it is, a nice quality render. It took about 30 minutes to render. So just keep that in mind that just because we get some really great renders, they will take a while to render. So when you increase those attributes, make sure that you are ready to take a break and enjoy a snack or something because it's going to render for a long period of time. All right, so where else can we improve our settings? Well, we want to improve our settings is in the lights themselves. So up here at the top, we have what's called the light editor. And you'll notice that all of my lights are actually there. Now, these point lights are in fact in here. So you don't even see them because I hid them. And the reason why is because I'm going to do a video tutorial on how to create evening lighting or romantic lighting later on. But what I wanted to show you guys is that this window, the light editor, you can go in and change what's called the samples. Now, we did that already for the directional light. But what we didn't do was increase the samples for the area lights. So I'm going to go in and just change the samples to 3. This is also going to help increase the quality of the render. And there you go. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you guys learned about how to create interior lighting. We went over directional lights. We also went over filters. We went over how to create your own sunlight, how to create the bounce lights, and so much more. So hopefully you guys learned a thing or two. If you did, please like and of course subscribe, because that is your message to me, letting me know that you're interested in these videos and you want to see more. Also, if you feel like this video will be helpful for somebody out there, maybe your friends, your peers, or even your instructors, please share. That would be amazing. Take a look at academicphoenixplus.com where you can find free downloads, free ebooks, free trainings, and so much more. So take a look at academicphoenixplus.com. Again, thank you so much for spending the time with me. Keep creating, and I will see you next time.